So this is Storm Runner Book 2, The Surge. It's by Roland Smith, read with permission from Scholastic. So we're not going to do quite as much work with this one, but I want you to remember that when you're reading a fifth grade text, you're thinking about the characters, you're thinking about how they're growing over time, and you're thinking about what problems and solutions there are. So Roland Smith did a really interesting thing where he stopped the last book and the monkey was in the mouth of the big cat. And that's not a very comfortable place to stop, so we're going to read a little bit more. So the title of this one is 12 Hours. Chase Masters looked at his watch. It was hard to believe it had only been 12 hours since he, Nicole, and Rashawn had gotten on the ill-fated school bus at Palm Breeze Middle School. Ill-fated means bad things happen to it. Fate is what happens to you, and ill-fated means bad happenings. During those terrible hours, the bus had sunk, its driver had died, and they had nearly drowned. Chase had broken a front tooth, his shoulder had been smashed by a falling chunk of asphalt road, and a 13-foot alligator had attacked him. But we're alive, he thought. Hurricane Emily didn't get us. The wind slammed into the side of the metal barn where they had taken shelter. Yet. Rashawn and Nicole jumped. What time is it? Nicole asked with a nervous laugh, and Chase told her. 3:15 a.m. Sounds like we're trapped in a steel barrel and someone's pounding on the side with a sledgehammer, Rashawn said, covering her ears. That's exactly what it sounds like, Chase thought, tempted to find a steel barrel, curl up inside, and stay there until Hurricane Emily blew herself out. He ran his tongue along the jagged edge of his front tooth and stretched his shoulder. Both still ached. He'd hoped that when they finally reached the farm, the nightmare would be over, but it wasn't. A leopard named Hector was running around the property with Nicole's grandmother's pet monkey, Poco, dangling from his mouth, and her family's house looked like it had been crushed with a wrecking ball. At first, they'd thought that Nicole's grandmother, Mama Rossi, had been trapped under the rubble, but she had taken refuge down the hill in the barn just before the house collapsed. Mama Rossi was a little person, like Nicole's father, Marco. The dwarfism gene had bypassed Nicole, so she was regular height. Chase glanced at Rashawn, who was alternating her gaze between Mama Rossi and the very large elephant chained in the middle of the sawdust-covered circus ring. It was hard to say which sight confused Rashawn more. Mama Rossi fixed her brown eyes on Chase. How are my treasures? I don't know. I didn't get a chance to check, he replied. Mama Rossi had predicted that the house would go down in the storm. So all you guys who voted that Mama Rossi was right, you were right. A day earlier, she'd asked Chase to transfer dozens of boxes of memorabilia to a storage container near the swimming pool in the back of the house. He'd caulked the container and wrapped it in tarps, but he doubted it had held up to Hurricane Emily's fury. What's important is that you're all okay, Mama Rossi said. What is this place? Rashawn asked. Our farm is the winter quarters for the Rossi Brothers Circus, Mama Rossi explained. Normally, this time of year, the farm would be filled with show animals and performers, but they managed to book some additional dates in Mexico, prolonging the season. Nicole's mother runs the show, and her father, my son, Marco, runs the farm. Why'd this elephant stay behind? Pet? She's pregnant with her first calf, Mama Rossi said. Why's she chained up? So she doesn't float to the ceiling, Nicole and Chase said in unison and laughed. You guys are hilarious, Rashawn said, rolling her eyes. I bet she's chained so she doesn't tear this building down. You're right, Nicole said. We don't have an elephant-proof building. The show elephants spend their winters in Texas with our trainer. Pet would be there now, but we didn't want to move her this close to having her calf. Excuse me. I hope this building is hurricane-proof, Rashawn said. Chase had never been in a hurricane, but he'd seen plenty of dangerous weather. Following his father from disaster to disaster the past 2 years had shown him that no building was storm-proof. At that moment, something heavy slammed into the side of the metal circus barn. They all jumped. What was that? Rashawn shouted. I don't know, Nicole said, but it sounded like it was shot out of a cannon at point blank range. Storm debris, Chase said, probably from the house. Remember, debris means pieces of garbage, which might be pieces of a house that was wrecked or pieces of a car that was wrecked. Broken up stuff is debris. So they talk about debris in rivers when they have broken up sticks and garbage and stuff like that. That's debris. It's upwind. By the loudness and density of the hit, he thought it might be one of the house's toilets. His father was always giving him articles about people being killed by unusual WPPs, which stood for wind-propelled projectiles, things that were pushed around by the wind. I think the first thud was followed by a rapid salvo of WPPs, which means bang, 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 that's a salvo. Everyone covered their ears and backed away from the wall. Nicole huddled closer to her grandmother, and Rashawn was shaking. Chase stood frozen in place. The barrage went on for several minutes and then suddenly stopped. They all stared at the wall. No one spoke. The wind still rattled the metal building, but the sound was nothing compared to the strikes they'd just heard. Nicole broke the silence. That was insane. I thought the wall was going to fall down right on top of us, Rashawn said. So did I, Chase admitted. He walked up to the wall and checked for damage. There were a lot of dents, but nothing seemed to have pierced the metal. Heavy gauge steel, he said, not mentioning that if one of the panels had come loose, it would have peeled off the building like the skin from a rotten banana, with all the other panels close behind. We're safe in here, he said, with more confidence than he felt. Are you sure? Nicole asked. Her long black hair was wet and tangled with twigs and dirt. Her usually bright brown eyes were dull with fatigue. Chase wasn't surprised. After the terrifying journey they'd endured to get to the farm. Maybe you should sit down, he said. You're right, Mama Rossi said. She looked at Nicole. You look dead on your feet. Nicole nodded and collapsed on the curb of the circus ring. I am. That last swim took a lot out of me. She looked up at Chase. You haven't answered my question. I don't know if we're safe or not, Chase admitted. There's water coming in around the door, which isn't surprising with this wind and rain. I guess I better check out the rest of the building, but to do that, I'll need more light. Our generator can only power one of the rings at a time, Nicole said. I don't know how to switch it to the other rings. She looked at her grandmother. I don't know either, Mama Rossi said. The lights went on over Pet's ring when I got into here. I'll check it out, Chase said. Where's the generator? In the workshop, connected to the bunkhouse, Mama Rossi said. Chase clicked on his headlamp and shined the beam along the wall. Battery's just about gone. He checked the second headlamp. Its beam was worse. Mama Rossi took a flashlight out of her coat pocket. Plenty of life left in this one. You should find batteries in the bunkhouse. I'm not sure where they keep them. If you don't find them in the kitchen, check in the workshop. Marco's been camping out in the bunkhouse for the last week to stay close to Pet. There should be plenty of food in the kitchen if any of you are hungry. We haven't eaten for hours, Chase said. I'll see what we can find. Do you think your dad can find my dad? Nicole asked. If I can get a hold of him. Chase pulled a plastic bag from his cargo pocket. Inside was a satellite phone, just like the one his father and his father's partner Tomas carried. Chase's phone had died after the school bus sank, but it had come back to life just before they reached the farm. He'd been able to talk to his father long enough to find out that he and Tomas were stranded on the other side of the lake and were looking for a way around to reach the farm. Chase did not expect to see them anytime soon. He pushed the on button. Nothing happened. Still dead, Chase said. Mama Rossi had set up a small electric heater next to the ring. Chase removed the phone battery, wiped it and the phone off as best as he could, and set both of them near the heater. Tears formed in Nicole's eyes. I hope Dad's not hurt. Marco is fine, Mama Rossi said, putting her arms around her granddaughter. Are you just saying that to make me feel better? Nicole asked, or do you know? I know, Mama Rossi said, just like I knew you and Chase and Rashawn were in danger. Just like she knew the farmhouse was going to blow over and nobody believed her, Chase thought. Just like she knew that Mom and Monica had died in a car crash on the mountain. Excuse me, ma'am, Rashawn said. Please, call me Mama Rossi. Okay, Mama Rossi. No disrespect, but I just met you a few minutes ago when we stepped into the barn. How could you know about me before then? Mama Rossi smiled, but she didn't answer her. Chase looked at Rashawn. She just knows things. Do you want to help me check out the rest of this barn? Sure, Rashawn said, but first I want to know if Mama Rossi has a bag of rice in that kitchen of hers. I'm sure there is, dear, Mama Rossi said, but we don't have any way to cook if the power is out. I don't want to eat it, Rashawn said. I want to use it on Chase's sat phone. My daddy is always dunking his cell phone into the water. He manages a wildlife refuge, so he's outside all day. He just puts it in a bag of uncooked rice, and the grains suck the moisture right out of it. Couple hours, the phone's as good as new. You're kidding, Chase said. No joke, Rashawn said. And when you get that phone fired up, you also need to ask your daddy about my daddy. I'm sure he's out looking for me, too. I will, Chase promised. 4:12 a.m. They must be getting just exhausted. Chase led Rashawn into the dark shadows of the circus barn. He didn't really need her help, but he wanted to give Nicole and Mama Rossi some time to themselves. Also, Rashawn knew things he didn't. She might see things he didn't as he checked the barn for hurricane damage. He'd only met Rashawn a few hours ago, but she had proven herself over and over again, just like Nicole had. There were 3 brightly colored curved circus rings running down the middle of the barn. Each ring was at least 300 feet across. Pet was chained in the center of the first ring, and stretched across the second, several feet off the ground, was a gigantic net. 30 feet above the net, a tightrope connected 2 platforms. Next to the tightrope was an array of trapeze equipment. Ooh, I don't like heights. I don't want to be up there. How many of you would like to climb up and ride one of those trapeze? Chase shined his light up at the ceiling. A series of catwalks crisscrossed the rafters above the equipment. What are those for? Rashawn asked. They must use them to adjust the rigging and the lights, Chase said. Rashawn jumped up and brushed off the bottom of the net with her hand. Guess this is in case someone does a header from that wire or swing. When we get to the bunkhouse, I'm going to find me a blanket, climb up on this net, and sleep for a week. It's like a big old hammock. Chase smiled. Another thing he liked about Rashawn was her ability to joke when there was nothing to joke about. He cut across the ring to the north wall of the building and put his hands on the metal sheeting. It was vibrating in the wind, but there was no evidence of water getting in. The wind was blowing from the west, where they had entered the building, which accounted for the water pooling inside the door near the elephant ring. The fact that there was no water along this wall gave him hope that the building might hold up to Hurricane Emily. He crossed to the opposite wall, but it was blocked off by a stack of hay bales that reached almost to the rafters. Chase and Rashawn walked down to the third ring, which held a circular cage. I think they use this one to train the big cats, Chase said. How many cats do they have? Rashawn asked. I'm not exactly sure, Chase said. When I got here, Nicole showed me 5 lions and a leopard. The one named Hector? Rashawn asked. Yeah, he was confiscated from a drug dealer and he's very aggressive. Don't you think all leopards are aggressive? Good point, Chase said. You think the lions were born free like Hector? I hope not. Chase neglected to tell her that the biggest lion, Simba, had been retired from the show the previous year after mauling his trainer. How come you didn't tell Mama Rossi about the dead monkey Hector was trotting around with in his mouth? Poco, right? Right, Chase answered. It's not my place to tell her. The last time I saw Poco, he was in Mama Rossi's kitchen wearing tiny diapers and eating sweet potato peels. He's her pet. I'm sure Nicole will tell her when the time is right. They make monkey diapers? I'm guessing that Mama Rossi makes monkey diapers. Never heard of such a thing. Rashawn glanced back at the lighted end of the long barn. Is Mama Rossi like a psychic or something? I guess we'll find out, Chase said. Stay tuned for the next chapter soon.